So we're here today with the lovely Richard, and I just wanted to ask him a few questions, and he's very kindly agreed to answer them. So Richard, hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
5 minutes.
Brilliant.
We hear that you're part church minister and part parent coach. How did that come about?
So I did a degree in youth work at university, and then left university, went and worked for a church, and then got ordained as a church minister. I suppose my passion has always been primarily to help young people and children, but over a kind of 20-year career it became really obvious that the people I needed to work with primarily was parents to affect the lives of young people and children. I've done a great deal of, I think, really good work with young people and children, but noticed that the parents still had the most power over the children, so wanted to work with families. And I'm part-time because I work with a community that can't sustain me full-time, and so I use the other part of my time to try and use those parenting skills to help a wider pool of families.
Excellent, that's fantastic. And also we mentioned earlier that you help talk to dads about how they can talk to their daughters about periods and all things menstrual. How do you find that? How do you introduce the subject?
Thank you. Yes. So, you know, as a church worker and as a youth worker, I've done lots of talking to young people about sex and puberty and helping young people navigate that change. And it became quite clear when my daughter had the school nursing to come and do the kind of period talk to mum, the talk with mums. They did a mums and daughters assembly, and the nurse, I'm sure she was only joking, but kind of said, you don't really want to talk to your dads about this. And that got me a bit cross because actually there should be an open door of communication. So I went and spoke to the head teacher, and he said, come on, let's put an amazing dad's night on. So the school had a big fire pit. So we basically had a dad's fire night, which involved beer, food, and me standing in front of this fire talking about puberty. And that's now a talk I take and do in schools and in churches. And so that's kind of the story of how it came about.
And did you find the dads, after they were introduced to this subject, did you find that they relaxed and started to be able to comfortably and without squirming and embarrassment discuss periods and the like with their daughters?
I think, you know, recognising that it's a big cultural shift. You know, culturally, all things menstrual is left to the females. But what was fascinating on the evening, you know, we handed out tampons, sanitary towels. Dads really kind of pulled these things apart, kind of really engineeringly kind of looking at them. It was fascinating. I'm sure most men have probably had to do the emergency shop for sanitary products, but this was a real opportunity to actually, this is what it is, this is what it looks like. I held a pair of knickers and told them this is how you put a sanitary towel in a pair of knickers if you're ever stuck having to describe it to your daughter because she started a period when there's nobody else around. I think genuinely dads recognise that they want to engage in the full sphere of parenting, but there are bits that we've just not talked about very well with dads, and I think as the evenings progress and as you get kind of time with small groups in dads, they recognise that by not being able to talk to their daughters about it, there's kind of a shame connotation, and all things around kind of menstrual cycles, things like that, I still think culturally still has a level of shame around it, and where we have shame we have reduced self-esteem, and what I'm about at Non-Perfect Dad is increasing children's self-esteem, and that means we need to talk about those topics which reduce self-esteem. I'm not saying all girls are going to want to talk to their dads about periods, that is of course their choice, but there should be an open door of conversation that should, and even I spoke to my 10-year-old this morning. I said, Dad's going to talk to some wonderful ladies about a product that they have and about periods. What should dads know about puberty? And it's just the fact that that was me not doing that because of this interview. That was me as a dad using an excuse to talk to my daughter about periods, and bless her, she came up with some great answers.
Well, we have to interview her as well.
Well, yes, you do.
But that really feels like so much synergy with what we feel at FabLittleBag in terms of engaging the male sex, whether it's dads, whether it's boyfriends, whether it's sons, because they're ultimately always going to be surrounded by people on periods, having periods, so they have a role to play in terms of being able to understand what is going on, know the products, know how they work, and just generally be more educated. So what you're doing is absolutely so helpful, and you need to start recruiting more of you to go around and have this conversation with more dads, I'm sure.
Well, thank you, and it's fascinating because it's still a topic that schools, when you ring schools and say, can I come and do this talk to dads, and you start off by saying, are your teenagers struggling with shame? Are you struggling with kind of over-sexualised children who haven't necessarily had good sources of information? And then you say, can I come and talk about, sex and puberty with dads? Schools kind of still feel that that's culturally just one step too far. So I'm really grateful for the schools in our area that have kind of embraced that and wanted to go with it. And I hope that there is a seesaw change in this, that we do start to see people engage with it. And even, when I first met Penny and saw the FabLittleBag, which I thought was brilliant, and I was showing it to my wife, my son came in and it was just like, what's that, Dad? And I explained to him, and certainly straight away my wife was like, that's brilliant. Straight away she took some of the stuff that I got off Penny. And I think what FabLittleBag offers is it offers a way of reducing some of that shame and anxiety. You've got a daughter who's going around to a boyfriend's house and she's on her period. The last thing she wants to do is start to try and have a conversation, about where does she use sanitary products, and FabLittleBag removes any of that kind of concern.
It's about confidence. It's about being relaxed and confident about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Do you think that having something like FabLittleBag is going to help that conversation with dads, because they can maybe be the person to introduce those to their daughters as a kind of confident way to dispose of things in a time where they may feel quite awkward about disposal?
Yeah, look, I think no dad's going to sit down with his daughter and say, right, now we need to talk about menstrual cycles. Anything that kind of gives a kind of excuse to start the conversation. The great thing about FabLittleBag is you can order it online, you can order like an annual package, which means somebody has to be involved in the ordering, and if the dad takes responsibility of that, it means that the dad needs to say, oh, your FabLittleBag order's arrived, or whatever. And it creates a normality around having the conversation about menstrual cycles, etc. And it means that the dad can kind of play an active part in that and be involved in that process. Again, daughters may not want to talk to their dads, but I think it's so important that dads present an open door, because you just don't know what circumstances are going to happen in life, where it might just be dad around. It could just be mum's away for the weekend, or if a dad is a single parent, they need to be prepared to think about that as well.
I have so loved talking to you
It's been great.
about this topic, and I encourage you to go forth and keep talking, and the more we can involve men, boys in this conversation, the more it becomes normal, the less it's a taboo, and the happier everyone's going to be. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brilliant. Thank you very much.